Hey, this is Pat Heyman. Someone had asked me to make a video showing them how to create a ZenCash Secure Node. So I happened to pick up some extra ZenCash last night. It went on sale for some unknown reason, and I happened to grab it. So one of the things that makes a secure node a little bit different is that you need a fully qualified domain name. What that means is you have to have something like zen@crypto.com. So you need to have a domain name. Now, sometimes the VPS will provide a domain name, and so I'll show you that later on. You can use that, and you'll see there's a couple of people who are doing that in the Zen node, in the Zen Secure Node tracker, but I think it's probably better just to buy a domain name and use it for this purpose. So as you can see here, I'm using Namecheap. If you'd like to use Namecheap too, I've got a link down below. You can use my referral link. I think I get like $1 or something to my account if you use it. But anyway, here I've got a domain name, and what we're going to do is we're going to click on the we're going to click on here and go to Advanced DNS, and then we are going to create a new A record. We are going to put the IP address of our VPS right there, and we're going to give it a name. So in this case, I'm going to call mine Zen3, and then click the little save button, and there you go. You want to do this before you really get started because it can take anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour for domain names to propagate. So now that part is done, and now we can move on with the rest of the guide. Now for this guide, we are going to be using the block operations secure node guide, and there are actually two versions of it. So this first one that you can see right here, I actually just searched in Google for block operations secure node, how to build and operate a ZenCash secure node. This is kind of like a synopsis. It's cliff notes on how to build it. And then this one here, build a ZenCash secure node part 1, and then there's a part 2 and a part 2.5 and a 3, etc. That is much more in-depth look at how to do it. Explains every step along the way. So for this particular video, I'm not going to use that detailed one. I'm going to use the Cliff Notes version. If you are new to this, I'd recommend using the more detailed version. Now, in order for a secure node to work, you need at least 6 gigabytes of RAM. I generally recommend that you go with a 4 gigabytes minimum of physical RAM, and then the other 2 can be virtual. So what I've been using with pretty good success is OVH, and then their cloud VPS, which actually isn't a cloud VPS at all, but their VPS SSD, and then the SSD2, this package right here, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 20 gigabytes of hard drive space for the low price of $671 a month if you pay annually, which comes out to about $80. So for $80 a year, you can run this particular VPS. All right, so let's go back to block operations and start walking through this process. Now, in a previous video, I had talked about how I set up a secure shell and lock out root password use, and also make it so you can't log in with a password. You have to use SSH keys. I'm not going to cover all that because I assume that you already know how to do that. And so basically what I've already done to this particular server is I created a username, I gave it sudo privileges, I locked down SSH, and I've updated the server using apt-get update and apt-get upgrade. So, and I rebooted it. So it's ready to go as far as all of this stuff goes. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to get to right here, make a ZenCash node. So the first thing we need to do is we need to check our free memory. Let me just pull this here. So we can see that we've got 3.8 gigabytes of RAM. That's not going to be enough. We need at least 6. And let's go ahead and do DF, which means disk free. And the H tag again gives you megabytes, gigabytes instead of long numbers. And you can see that we've got plenty of room here in our system. So we've got 19 gigabytes available on the main drive itself. So what we are going to do then is we are going to follow these directions right here, and you can just take it right there. the first time you use sudo, you only want to use one command. And then once you put in your password, now you can copy several at a time and it will enter them for you. All right, now we're going to, we just became root when we did that. And now we're going to exit back out. All right, then I don't know why he does this. Come in and back out of root twice. So basically what we did was those little commands, they add a line to a configuration file. You can also nano that configuration file and manually add it there, but that little code just kind of does it automatically. Okay, so now we're back in our root, in our regular user. We're no longer root, and we're going to check our memory. And now we can see that in addition to the 3.8 gigabytes of actual memory, we also have a swap file of 4 gigabytes. So it's kind of virtual memory. The hard disk is acting as memory. And then we're also going to check our disk space. It hasn't really changed very much. You can see now instead of having 20 gigabytes free almost, now we only have 15 gigabytes. This is the sort of thing that ZenCash is kind of intensive, and you can run out of memory and you can run out of disk space pretty easily on some of the smaller plans. This is why you want to use a bigger plan. All right, so at this time, we're going to install Zen, and it's pretty easy overall. Now, this right here is actually 3 different lines. So there's your first line. And then here is our second line. And the third. What this is doing is it's adding a Zend repository to our package list. So that way we can install it with just a single command. All right, Zen is now installed. What we have to do now is we have to do this Zen fetch params, which is going to download a whole bunch of parameters that ZenCash needs. So while we wait for that to happen, let's just go ahead and take a look at the next little bit. So what we're going to do next is we're going to run this program Zen, and then we are going to create a configuration file. Remember, this little part here and here is just a way to automatically put everything in between into that file. You could also nano this particular file, and then you could just copy and paste this stuff into it. Pretty simple. Then we're going to run Zen. Now, this is going to take a long time. I think the last time I ran this, it took almost 4 hours to completely sync. ZenCash has been around for a while, and the way that the secure nodes work with their issuing of daily challenges, there's a lot of information on the blockchain, and it just takes a long time for it to sync. So just be aware that you might be done with the entire rest of the guide before it finishes syncing. So just keep that in mind. And we can see here we're only about halfway done with the sync. So I'm gonna pause it until we're done. And we're back. It didn't actually take that long, but it's kind of boring to watch it, so we skipped it. All right, so let's go ahead and start Zen. Okay, so it's going to tell you that, hey, we're not actually going to run Zen. Instead, we're going to kind of create this little default configuration right here. So now we're just going to pop this in. And then the last thing we want to do is we actually want to replace the username and password with something here. You could have done this as you copied it, but hey, whatever. ZenMaster 4730, who knows what. One thing with these RPC passwords is that sometimes they mess up if you use special characters. So it's recommended that you don't use special characters. And everything else is fine. All right, now we run Zend again, and it's starting. So if you check the status, with command line interface, we can see that there are currently 240 blocks. And if you do it again, you see it gets bigger. If you want to be really cool, you can type the word watch in front of it. And what you'll notice is that these blocks slowly get bigger. So as I said before, there's a lot of blocks to, there's a lot of information in those blocks to process. So you can hit Control-C to get out of that. All right. So now what we have to do is install a free certificate from Let's Encrypt. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to install an SSL, secure socket layer certificate. So that means we have to have our fully qualified domain name, which we already set up. So it should hopefully be ready. So we're going to go ahead and ping it. So I think we called it Zen3. It pinged it, so we know it works because that's our SSH. That's our server's IP address. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and just copy and paste all that. Now you might be thinking to yourself, what do I need you for? All you do is copy and paste stuff. And that's true until something goes wrong. And stuff will go wrong. So it's the troubleshooting when something goes wrong. That's what I really get paid for. All right, so in this case, you're going to put, we're creating a variable name, and our variable name is the fully qualified domain name. And then the next step tests whether that actually worked. Because what we're going to do is use this little code, $FQDN. So you just made that into a variable, and we're going to use that in these next few commands. So oh, that's why. See, I told you what I get paid for is to figure out what went wrong. And I can see that what went wrong is that I'm not in the right directory. I see. Because I forgot to do these. All right. So what happened is when you copy this, apt installs need you to say yes. And because it's missing the -y switch on here, it didn't automatically install. It asks you, are you sure? When you hit yes, these next commands don't actually get executed. And so that's why it didn't end up in the right place. So here we are now, we're in the right place. So we can go ahead and run okay, so there you go. And now we're going to create a cron tab, which stands for cron table, which says run something on a regular basis. and we have to change these to our username. All right. We've already done this, so you don't need to run it again. But what we need to do now is change these. All right. All right, so that looks like everything works. So we can now do that. What that did is it just copied our SSL certificates into the appropriate places. And now what we have to do is configure our trust certificates. So if you hit the up and down arrows, you'll see these certificates. The ca.crt, that's the one we just created. So you're going to hit the space key one time. You see that just turn into an asterisk, and then hit enter. And it should go ahead and install that certificate for us. All right. Now what we have to do is stop Zen. And then we are going to tell it where our certificates are. These two lines, just add that to the end of this. And then we run Zen. All right. Now we're going to use ZenCLI get network info and scroll up a little bit. And what you should see is TLS certified is true. And that's what we're looking for. That means that our certificates at least seem to work. I've seen where this step says true, but they're not really there. So there's another step we have to do to check in a few minutes. But in the meantime, what we need to do is we need to create a transparent address on our Swing wallet, and then send 42 Zen to it. That's your collateral. And you've got to make sure that that balance never goes below 42. Now, this is a little bit different from a regular Masternode. In a Masternode, the wallet should lock your collateral. In a Zen node, it is not locked. So if you move it out of there by accident, or if you send a transaction where the change address is different, then all of your change will go into the different address, and then your Zen won't be there. So you have to make sure there's at least 42 Zen at all times, or you're going to fall below the collateral. If you catch it quickly and put it back in, then it won't really affect things too badly. I've actually had it happen to me before. But just be aware, you've got to make sure that you've got 42 in each T address you have a secure node for. I'm not going to show you on this because my wallet is not on this particular computer because, well, that would be silly. But imagine for a moment that I'm pausing the video and I'm sending 42 Zen to that particular T address. And then we're going to create a Z address, which is a shielded address. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to see if there's one already on our server. And there isn't. If there were, it would show up between these two brackets. So we're going to go ahead and get one. All right, there it is. Now, this is our collateral, or so this is our challenge address. So remember, the way that secure nodes work is once a day, there's going to be a challenge issued where there is a very tiny transaction that is sent to ZenCash and then, or sent to your node, and then your node will send a transaction back. So you have to have a little bit of fuel for that because every transaction takes a small amount of Zen. So what we're going to do in the next step is we are going to send a certain amount of Zen to this particular address. So make sure you copy that and write it down or copy it into a notepad or something so that you can send your Zend to it. And now, this is important. This right here is old. It used to be that you needed 4 or 5 transactions of this much, but in fact, you don't actually need that much anymore. So I think the last time I set one up, I just sent 2 transactions of 0.1, so it was 0.2 total, and that worked just fine. 0.2 should run your Zend for a long time, like 6 months to a year. So you don't need to do that much Zend. If you actually did 4 to 5 transactions of this, you'd end up with like a Zend and a quarter on the server. So you don't want to send that much Zend to your server. That's like 35 to 40 bucks being sent to your server. You want to spend more like, you know, $5, $10 to your server. All right. So we're going to pause that while I do this step, and I'll be back. Okay. All right, we're back. I should have also mentioned that it takes a little while for those transactions to go through. So the next thing we need to do is check to see if our transactions are showing up on the server. And you can see that right now they are not. So this private balance should say I sent 2 transactions of 0.1, so it should say 0.2, but it doesn't. So the reason it doesn't is most likely because the blockchain might not be fully updated. So if we click on this, we can see that it's not fully updated, and that's why it's not working. So and it also says, warning, check your network connection, 0 blocks received. The reason it's doing that is because it's not fully there yet. So in the meantime, we can begin to do this next part, but we can't fully do it until it's actually fully synced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it tonight, and then I'm going to let it sync overnight, and then I'll finish this video up tomorrow. So what we have to do now is install the tracking program. So we're going to start with this. It's been a little while since I've used sudo, so just in case I have to enter my password, we're only going to copy the first one. So npm and n are programs that allow you to do the Secure Node tracker. So it takes a little while to get installed here. All right, next step. All right, and now what we're going to do is we are going to create a folder called ZenCash in our home directory. Then this command is going to pull down this Secure Node tracker, and then we're going to cd into that particular directory. So now you can see we're in the home directory, ZenCash SecureNode tracker or Secure Node tracker. All right. For this next step, we're going to need the transparent address where our collateral is, and we're also going to need an email address because it's going to send us alerts if there's downtime or if your collateral falls below the 42, or if there's some other problem like you're failing challenges. So we're going to run this node setup, and oh, I forgot to install this one. All right. So with node setup, the first thing you need is a transparent staking address. So I have conveniently copied it into this little file, and I'm going to pause it just for a moment. Okay, so you need your staking address that is on your wallet where your 42 ZenCash are. You need an email that will receive alerts, and you need your fully qualified domain name that we already set up. And then you need to tell it whether you're using an IP4 or an IPv6 IP address. If you're not sure, chances are extremely high that you're using IP4. So just put in 4. And then by default, you want your region code. So we've got North America, Europe, and Southeast Asia. We'll put in North America, and you're done. So let's go ahead and clear the screen and continue on with our installation. All right, so now it's telling us that the private address balance is 0, and we need to have some Zend in there. So basically what we have to do now is just wait until the blocks fully sync. Now, if you're setting up several different nodes at once, then what I would recommend doing is if you already have one node, stop it, transfer that, you just copy the entire blockchain from one of your servers to another server, and I mean, it'll be like 10 gigabytes of data, or 4 to 10 gigabytes of data, but still that's going to be much, much, much faster than waiting for it to sync block by block by block. So just a little tip that could help you if you're setting up a lot of these at once. Set up one, let it fully sync, and then stop it, copy it over to all the others, and then sync them all at once, a lot faster. So anyway, at this point, we've got to stop for the evening because it's just going to take too long. It'll be like probably 3 in the morning before it's done syncing. All right, in the meantime, what you can do is watch Zen CLI get info. And you can watch those blocks magically get bigger. Okay, it's the next day and we're back, and you can see now that our blocks are synced. So hit Control-C to stop watching, and now we should be able to check how things are going. All right. So it's telling us that our stake balance is lower than 42, so something is wrong. So we have to check what's wrong on that end. Okay, so here's one of the annoying things about ZenCash. When you send ZenCash to an address, it then sweeps all the remaining funds out of that address and puts them in a new address. So if you take a look at this particular stake address right here, what you see is that money went in and then money came right back out for a final balance of 0. So what you've got to do is then go to your wallet, click the send button, and there'll be a little drop-down box that shows you all of the different addresses and the balances inside of them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, okay, the Zen is actually in a new address, and then I'm going to have to set up the node again with the new address. So hold on while I get that copied and over. Oh, you can also go to the own addresses tab, and it should also show you there. So one of the very little annoying features, and this can also affect you if you've been collecting your dividends, your rewards payouts for running your ZenCash Secure Node, and they get paid to the address where the stake is. And so you decide, oh, look at that, I've got like 6 ZenCash. I'd like to send them to Bittrex or Binance and trade them. The problem is when you do that, the rest of the change gets sent to another new address. And so then you have to go and put those funds back into the original address, or your secure node will stop working, or you have to reconfigure the node. So it's a little bit of an annoying feature. I'm sure there's some way around it, but I haven't actually studied it enough. So before I go ahead and rerun the setup, I just wanted to note that you can click ZenCash, ZenCLI, get total balance, and we notice that now I've got 0.2 ZenCash in the private address of this particular ZenCash node, and that's the fuel for the challenges. So remember, challenges once a day is going to create a private transaction, receiving and then sending. And so it's going to send a little, it's going to use up a little bit of that fuel every time. So 0.2 should last quite a while, at least 6 months. So you don't need a lot, but you do need some. All right. So what now we need to do is set up our node yet again. Sorry guys, I forgot to hit go. So once you change the once you change the address to be the correct address, so we do that by running in the ZenCash Secure Node tracker file. You're gonna run node setup, and then you'll put in the new staking address where your coin actually is, and then you're gonna just keep everything else the same. Then you're gonna run the node. And it's going to tell you, hopefully, that it worked. Oh, it's not working right now because Zend isn't running. I did quite a few things while we were gone with the camera off. So Zend is running now. So let's see what we have. All right. It's not working yet because Zend isn't fully synced. It'll sync in a couple seconds. In the meantime, just see, it'll tell you how much total memory you have, how much is free, how much is available, and your swap and how much of it is free. So right now, it's doing pretty well, but it's also not actually doing anything. Okay, so now it's authenticated. It's got our staking, our private address, and it's authenticated, blah, 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 blah. Sending initial stats, cert check, valid is true. It says there was downtime logged because we rebooted. And actually it started a challenge. So it's already done. It's already going to do its first challenge. So we'll let it do its challenge while we're waiting. In the meantime, you can click on Secure Nodes 2 and you can type in the name of your thing. All right, so here we go. Zen3 crypto, blah, blah, blah. Here's our IP address, which tells you the version of Zen you're running and the tracker version that you're running. So when you run a secure node, you are participating in a business and you need to keep up to date with your business. So when a new version of the tracker or a new version of Zen comes out, you need to upgrade those things. So if you see that you're behind everyone else, you need to go ahead and do that. It'll also tell you the number of peers you have. We only have 1 peer right now. And you need to have 8 eventually, minimum. So anyway, it says our cert is true, and that's important. You want to see that. If you click on it, it'll tell you some additional details, and it'll also tell you our cert is true, the state is up, and it tells us that there was some downtime a minute ago for 8 minutes. That's while I was performing some maintenance. Okay, so you can see that it ran through the test and the challenge was submitted and successful. So we're going to close this now. And we're going to go back to our guide. So what we've done is we set up the node, we ran the node, and then we checked the node. And we actually watched the challenge occur in real time. All right, so next thing we need to do is we're going to make sure we are in the Secure Node tracker. And then we're going to install this program, which I already actually did that off camera, but we'll do it again just for fun. Kicks and giggles. Okay. Now, what it will do is it'll give you a little message down here, and that message will say, oh, sorry, this next part here, startup. It'll say, if you want this to start up, you need to copy and this particular command and run it. So let's do that. And there you go. Then it's going to say, if you want to remove that startup script, then run this command. We're not going to do that. One little thing that I did off camera that I want to show you how you can do is I changed the host name to Zen3. Because the next thing we're going to do, it looks cooler if you set this up. So what you do is you edit the /etc host name file, and that's Zen3. Then you edit the /etc hosts file, and you put in right here your IP address, your fully qualified domain name, and then the host name. And then you run the host name command, and you'd put your host name in there. And then when you reboot, it will magically change your host name to the host name that you want. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to install the monit program. And I already installed it. So then we're going to create a little program that starts Zen for us. I've already done this, but there it is. The important thing here is that you need to change. These will be called user. You can see right here, it's called user, and you need to change user to your username there and there. If you forget to do that, it's not gonna work. So this little program creates this little script creates a little program that you can use to start and stop the tracker. Then we're going to make that little program executable. And now we're going to edit the monit RC program, go all the way to the bottom, and we're going to copy and paste these commands, and you've got to make sure that you change user into your username all 3 times. Okay, now we are going to reload that file, and you can ignore these, you can ignore those, but it's saying that this doesn't exist, and that is not good. And the reason why is because I forgot that to get rid of that little greater than sign. So, and now reload it, and good. So these 2 error messages are always there. You can just ignore them. And now we're going to use monit to start zend, and it says successful. And now we're going to look at the status. And here's our status. So the Zend process, it says, is running. It's being monitored. If for some reason Zend stops, this monit program will restart it for us. And then notice that the system says our fully qualified domain name. That's why I like to change it, because if you don't, it'll say like VPS whatever, and that's just not cool. What's cool is to be your fully qualified domain name. All right. So if you kill Zen by doing Zen CLI stop, then monit is going to go, hey, you need to start again. So if you really need to stop it, you're going to use this particular command right there. We don't need to do that right now, so we're not going to do that. Okay, at this time, what we're going to do is we are going to install the firewall. So the firewall is called UFW. I don't know, Ultimate Firewall, Cool Firewall, something firewall. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to make sure that all outgoing is allowed. And then, which it says it's already there, so you can ignore that if you want to. Then we're going to deny all incoming, which is what it should be. And then we're going to allow SSH. And then we are going to limit SSH. So what this does is it makes it so you can only have 6 connections, I think every 30 seconds to SSH. And what that effectively does is it kills the ability for brute force attacks, because you just can't, it just makes it so slow that you can't do a brute force attack. Then we are going to allow HTTP, HTTPS, and not the port 9033. All right, all 3 of those were enabled. then we're going to make logging and then the last thing we're going to do is enable it. This is always a little bit scary because you could lock yourself out of your server, but hey, we didn't. Yay! So now the last thing we can do is just check the status. And you'll see that 22, which is SSH, is limited. 80, 43, and 9033 are all allowed. And that is your HTTP, your HTTPS, and 9033. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to enable fail to ban. So the first command installs it, the second one enables it, and the third one makes it so it will start at reboot. Actually, it's the other way around, but who cares? And then we're going to install a rootkit hunter, which should protect us from rootkits. We're going to say internet site, and the default should be your fully qualified domain name. All right, now we're going to create a little file that will update the site for our node for us. About once a week, I would recommend running this script. So the first most important thing is going to update, then it's going to upgrade, then it's going to auto remove packages that are no longer needed, and then it is going to update your rootkit hunter and make sure that nothing bad has happened. So let's go ahead and create it. Then we have to give it executable permission. And then the way that you run it is by doing sudo and then the script. And there's nothing to upgrade right now, so nothing's going to happen, but that's what could happen. All right, there you go. The last thing is we need to reboot and see if everything worked. So we're thinking. Okay, there we go. So now we're going to check the status of monit. And we see that it's not started. I'll have to fix that. Let's do the next part, which is, and it hasn't started. Okay. And just for the sake of completeness, Zen has started. Very interesting. All right. So Zen is running, but it's not being properly monitored. See, it says it doesn't exist. And if you run this PM2 status, then we see that there's nothing there. So we're going to have to go back and fix that. Okay, so I finally got it to work. What I ended up doing was just deleting the PM2, the .pm2 directory from the home directory. So if you check right there in the home directory, PM2. So I moved it to .pm tilde and then reran these startup scripts. Right here. I just reran these two particular commands inside this folder and then reran the PM2 startup, and it worked. So at this time, it looks like everything is working. I rebooted, Zen is working, the secure node is up. Let's just make sure. The final tests, we rebooted, we did all those items. Everything works. let's just come back up here and check the status. Okay, it's up. It's got 3 peers. Looks good. You can see that there's been some downtime occasionally because I've been working on it, but it all works out now. If you want to send a manual challenge to your secure node, you can click this send a challenge, and then you'll get an email with a link to create a challenge. If you want to take a look at your challenge results, there it is. We've had 1 so far, and it was a pass. You should be getting 1 challenge each day on average. You can also take a look at your payments, and there have been none so far. So let's just take a quick look at my first Zend node so we can see what it looks like in terms of its payouts. Whoops, let's just take a quick look at that. It says it's down. We've got to fix that. It says it's been down for 4 days. That's no good. Payments, you can see that I missed 3 payments because of downtime that I was not aware of. And then, or 4 of them, I should say. And then, other than that, I've been getting paid out regularly. All right. Anyway, that is it for this particular video. I am going to have to do some troubleshooting. It's a really good idea to check your secure nodes on a regular basis. Apparently, I have let mine go for 4 days without being up, and that is just unacceptable. All right, that's it. That's a 58-minute video, unedited. I'm going to edit it down and take out some of the crap so that it should actually be a little bit shorter for you guys, but that means it's going to be at least another day before this gets up, so sorry about that. In the meantime, let me know what other videos you'd like for me to make, and I will try to make them. Someone asked for a Windows Secure Node video, and no, I'm just not going to do that. Sorry. Anyway, if you want me to set up your secure node for you, we can skip all this trouble and it'll just work. So basically, the only thing you have to do is get the Zend in your wallet. You tell me which address it's in. You send the point. I'll tell you the shielded address. You send 2 transactions of 0.1 to it, and it's in business. That's pretty much it on your end. After that, all you have to do is once a week run that upgrade script that I showed you, and make sure it doesn't go down. If it does go down, chances are it just needs to be rebooted. And on that note, good night.